You are listening to the Field Coach Experts podcast, where we uncover what actually works when it comes to supporting franchisees and building modern, high-performing brands. Today, I'm joined by Rob Flanagan, CEO of Hounds Town, USA. Now, Rob isn't just a franchisor. He's a leader who has lived the ups and downs. You'll hear this throughout the episode of growing brands. And he has a way of making culture tangible instead of fluffy. Every time he shares in our roundtables, the AC roundtables, you can always hear that depth of experience behind his perspective. So in this conversation, we're going to dig into how strategic growth coaching has contributed to the culture at Hounds Town, what wasn't working before and how coaching made that shift, and what other franchisors can learn about moving from more of a consulting approach to true coaching. So we're going to go be awesome. So, Rob, from the moment we met at the FBR Summit a few years ago, I knew you were one of those people. It was so obvious. You just get it. I was like, that first conversation we had, you get it when it comes to optimizing the franchisee-franchisor relationship. And hearing that you came up in franchising from a role in the field explains everything. So let's jump in. Thank you for being here. Let's hear a little bit about like that coming up in the world of franchising.
Let's jump in, but I want people to know we actually first met at IFA in an elevator.
Oh, right. You've told me
And you
this.
walked in with a hat and you said, "What floor?" And I said 3, and you said, "Okay." And then you hit 3, and that was the first time we met. But we got to know each other much better at that other conference. Yeah.
There you go. Okay. Well, I also remember you saying when we chatted for the first time, then, like the bigger conference, let's say, call it that, at the FBR Summit, that you were like, wait a minute, I just put two and two together because at the time and now I'm taking us down a different path, but we're going to come back to your background. But you said, I have all my field team members listen to your podcast because you wanted them to learn. And I was like, well, wait a minute. If you're looking for professional development, let's talk a little more. So you
Yes.
remember that?
Yeah. And that was a big part, and I'm sure we'll touch on that, is I think what it reminds me of is, when I went through school, I had this professor one time. He was brilliant, but everything he did was very instinctual. So he had a harder time teaching what he was doing.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that applies to field support because it's much more than just a big part of it is certainly the spreadsheets and the KPIs and this. But there is an instinctual element because it's so relationship driven. And I often found for myself when we would try to train either like a store manager coming into our field support or somebody from another brand, that this instinctual element would not get taught well because it's kind of harder to teach that. And then when I came and like met you and discovered AC Inc., what I was enamored with was that you figured out a way to teach the relationship part, the emotional smarts. I don't like the word emotional intelligence, but the people part of it. You figured out how to teach that, and that's why I have been so enamored with what you guys do and put it into our company, and it's been hugely successful.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that's what, yeah, we always say that missing piece. Everybody's teaching the technical and the brand and all the operations. But okay, back over to you on your upbringing in franchising, because that I believe that you could tell there's a big difference when you talk to people in franchising, whether they're on a supplier team or a founder of a supplier or a founder of a or not a founder of a franchise, but like a franchise or team member. You can tell the difference when they've been in a lot of different roles. So tell us about that, because that'll give us some good context.
Yeah, I'd love to tell everybody that it was planned.
Yeah, it was your roadmap for life.
But almost like anybody in franchising, I have never come across somebody who said, "Yes, when I was 13, I said, I'm going to be in franchising."
Right.
I think so many people find it because it's so unique and there is such an awesome component of the business part of it, but it's so relationship driven. And I think that's why a lot of people like myself land in it and say, oh, I found a home. And yeah, I was in grad school. I had to pick a teacher, and it was Diane Israel or Dewey Freeman. And I was like, I don't know these teachers. Diane comes before Dewey, DI before DU. Who cares? Diane's my teacher. Her and I hit it off. I needed some money in Boulder, Colorado to buy fat tire because it was ridiculously expensive. And I went to her. I was like, "Hey, do you know anybody hiring? I just need a part-time job, honestly, to buy beer."
Yeah. So,
And she was like, "Well, my brother, Rob Israel, is a serial entrepreneur. He's just about to open up this business he's just created called Dot Popcorn. They sell different flavored popcorns in malls. He's opening near here. I'll put you guys in touch." And so called him. He hired me at minimum wage. I started out as a minimum wage clerk, serving popcorn in a
I love.
mall so I could buy beer.
Oh my gosh! Just wait. Pause. Do you have a picture of you serving that popcorn that we could?
There are some pictures, not from like the first day, but there are some pictures
Oh,
of
that'd be
us
fun.
like in the very, very beginning. I'd have to like find them.
It'd be good if you had like a beer in your hand and
A
then like
beer and a
popcorn.
bag of
I'm
popcorn.
sure you didn't do that, but
Well, not that anybody knew, but yeah.
right.
And I graduated, and when I graduated, I was like, man, like I'm not. I love um, the philosophy. I was studying to be a therapist, and I love the philosophy of psychology and all that, but I didn't love actually doing the therapy work. And so I was like, well, I'll stick with this popcorn gig. It pays the bills. And then a couple of years, the founders decided to franchise it around 2008, or right around when the crash happened.
Hmm.
And then as we got into franchising, I would be honest, like up until that point, I felt somewhat lost career wise. Like I
Yeah.
never found something that I was like, oh, this is it.
Hmm.
But we started opening some stores, and the psychology part of it, the relationship part of it, the business structure system part of it, I was really enamored with, and really became kind of a fanboy of franchising, going to the conferences and reading things and teaching myself. I started out as a field rep, then kind of moved up through operations. We sold the company to Dippin' Dots, and then I was brand president. And so then I started getting exposed to more and more departments. And what I really kind of discovered was my love, my passion is really about partnering with founder-led brands, usually around 10 to 15 units, and really starting with understanding where do they want this brand to go? What's the magic with those founders to capture within the brand and not lose it? But then also, how do you layer in the systems that you need for scale? And most importantly, is being able to identify, and it's hard to do, but identify, hey, this maybe you may think this is a sacred cow, but it's not. But this is the brand. This is what makes us different. And maybe in time it may have to change. Never know. But we should really be protective of it versus attacking it every year because maybe we don't understand it. And so I really start with the founders and then layer in the franchising infrastructure to scale to whatever degree that brand is intended to scale.
Yeah. Oh, I love that you're just able to use all that you learned because you saw it and lived and breathed it and then help other founders. And you know what I love about that is, so many founders think they have to move on because they don't have the skills and, but to be able to make it an option for them to stay as the leader of the brand. I lived and breathed that myself and saw my dad go through all this over the years for 30 something years of questioning all the time, like how do things like, how do we maintain culture as we grow? How do, yeah, do we, there's some customers are demanding this or that. An example would be way back, whether we were retail frozen food, should we deliver? Well, then that took away the customer experience in the store. And it was like, but do we go with the times or do we try to keep making people come in and get the experience? So I'm
Yes.
guessing those are the kinds of things you're talking about where you have to look, should this be on the chopping block? Is this, like you said, a sacred cow or not?
What it comes down to, I'm speaking in a generality. Um, what's the signal within the feedback? Sometimes people talk about signal and noise.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people look at that as like there's feedback noise and then there's signal, and I have to just focus over here. That's not my experience. Signal is buried within the feedback. Customer feedback, franchisee feedback, your team's feedback, the board's feedback, economic feedback. All that feedback is often legitimate from a certain perspective. But you have to be able to find the signal within the feedback. What is the thing that, if we focus on that, is going to have the highest rate of return, either in raising sales, increasing profitability, or increasing franchisee satisfaction, something within that. And that's kind of the infrastructure to bring in, because if you don't, everything is just feedback and it's overwhelming. It feels like a tidal wave. But if you can find the signal, now you can surf the tidal wave. And it's a ride. It's got some dips and it can be a little dangerous, but man, is it fun. But you got to find the signal within the feedback.
Oh my gosh. I got to ask, how do you find the signal?
So on my end of it, it's I like to kind of put numbers to things. I
Mhm.
find it helps. 80% is about objective data. And so, especially within a franchise system, there could be a lot of different of opinions based on when they came in the system, how are they growing, their market, and their feedback is honestly 9 times out of 10 legit for that perspective. But then you can have the opposite feedback from another cohort, right? What does the objective data tell me? What are the areas we need to focus? Maybe I'm doing a test and the franchisees that are behind it, that test does really well because they're behind it. They want it to do well. There's always a built-in thing. But hey, when I go test this in locations that aren't really behind it and it's flopping, doesn't mean I'm not going to do it. But there's something within this that's telling me, oh, if you're not behind this program, it doesn't do as well. That's signal within the feedback, but I need objective data to be able to see that.
Yeah, objective data, which include and then including testing is what I'm
And
hearing.
testing is a huge part of it. The other 20% is the emotional psychology relationship part of it. So if we're using that test analogy, okay, there's the franchisees that are behind it psychologically, it's successful. Now, what do I need to communicate? How do I orient certain things so the people who aren't behind it are behind it?
Hmm.
How do I get it so that they want to do it? I'm not having to force them to do it because it's a brand standards thing or something. Sometimes you have to go that direction. But you want to maybe start with that 20%. It's not objective. It's, you've heard me say it before, you've met one franchisee, you've met one franchisee. What's emotionally happening here? What's psychologically happening here? Maybe they don't want to do the program because the brand has launched two other things that haven't gone well. So
Right.
they don't trust anything the franchisor is launching. They don't care how much data you throw at them. They're
Yeah.
just like, these last two things were not good for me.
Hmm.
Okay. It has nothing to do with data. It has to do with a relationship now. And so, how do we then kind of create communication and partnership and have some hard conversations around that to navigate around that situation.
Yeah, okay, I love this. And I said earlier in this at the beginning about how it comes back to culture. And culture, a lot of people still think culture, you can just worry about that later, or it's fluffy or whatever, or just it just happens. But these are examples of the things that you're saying already. Just you can see the intentionality that you have around creating culture. And I feel like I'm even not I'm doing a disservice by even saying that, but because there's so much that you can do to drive success through the cult, like by what you create. um I kind of want to take it over to the balance between um having this what did you call it, not emotional intelligence, emotional skills.
On emotional sparks, there's just something like how would you feel if I came to you and I said you're not smart? You'd be
Yeah,
like, that hurts my feelings. Well, if I
yeah,
came to you and said, hey, you're not emotionally intelligent, well, that doesn't feel good either.
yeah. So you're trying to kind of come up with a way
Yeah,
around it.
what we're speaking to though is, is understanding the very human element of franchising.
Yeah,
And it's not easy, but you're having to find a way to create a relationship to a system. Smaller brands, the relationship is with individuals. But as the brand scales, you have this very emotional relationship to the system.
yeah,
And so within that, um, the individuals have to understand where and how to hear the franchisees and what they're really saying. And that does take a level of relationship skills for sure. And then, yeah, to your point, the culture part is kind of layered underneath that. The language I try to use around culture is that often, and again, anybody listening to this, I am not knocking anybody, but often I will sometimes see that culture is more seen as like a Christmas light. It's really nice to have. It's really pretty. I kind of do it part of the year, but that's all it's there for. It's window dressing. The way I talk about culture is that it's a vehicle. It is just like operations, marketing, and finance, and it's a vehicle that drives less turnover in your organization. It's a vehicle that does drive higher franchise sales and profitability because if you have that less turnover, your team is happy to be at work. They enjoy what they're doing. That energy carries over to how you structure anything with franchising. And so then that directly drives that. But when you look at culture as just window dressing, well, what is it?
not valuable
Yeah.
then.
But when you look at it as a vehicle that I can also measure, now I'm looking at it the same way I look at the other levers of my business as something I can pull, improve, push forward that drives the entire mission of the company forward.
And this is where I want to check in with so you knew that you needed to put some kind of a framework in place for in order to systemize and standardize the way that you're supporting franchisees. And I know that you understand this enough. You get it. You could build it yourself, and we were lucky that instead you came to us and we worked together. That's great. How does that tie together? How does the framework tie into the culture?
Yeah. So you always, for me, I just always start with it's the bedrock of just everything we do. And so sometimes it confuses people, but anybody at Hounds Town, you look at their title, it says cultural co-founder.
Hmm.
And what that is communicating to our team is we are all accountable to the culture. If I do something that goes against our values as the CEO, somebody I just hired 3 weeks ago in a more entry level position is actually supposed to call me out on it. if
Yeah.
I didn't do extreme ownership or speak the truth or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So we're all here at Hounds Town part of the culture equally,
Hmm.
and that creates that bedrock. From that culture, then you take it to what grows out of it. And now you're getting into the how do we support our franchisees? How do we support our franchisees to our values, to our mission, and our purpose while layering in all the KPIs and the objective data? And from my perspective, how you support franchisees at the field level is where everything goes. I can't tell you how many times, and when I talk about field support, it's not just after they open. How do you support them in we're brick and mortar, real estate and construction?
Yeah.
Anybody listening to this, if you're brick and mortar, how many times have your field reps been not in a great place post opening because the franchisee wasn't getting field support in real estate and construction? So it's all the way through the journey,
Hmm.
whatever that may or may not look like. And then from there, what it really is what you're speaking to. Could I have done it? Probably nearly not as well. But it's a strategic coach saying who, not how. And so, how do I look at this? It's like, who can do this better, faster, and quicker, and bring that resource in to put that and layer it into my company because it's so important, it's so critical, and it's going to take me 18 months and not nearly as well. And so, how can I actually end up launching it in 3 months in a much better way than I ever could have done? So that's what we ended up doing.
Yeah. And so the culture piece, though, I guess one thing I want people to really be hearing here is that culture isn't about I stole this from someone else, but beanbag chairs and ping pong and beer Fridays in the office, right? Culture, I'm hearing about accountability and performance and expectations and understanding the relationship and so much more. So one of the things people often ask when we talk about putting structure into a brand around support is, well, but like you have said to me many times, I love what if you met one franchisee, you've met one franchisee. So then how does like having a framework erode your culture? Like if you have a framework and now everyone does it turn people into robots?
Yeah, this is where I think the language is really important. And so the language I use is context, not control. So if what I'm trying to do is control every kind of part of culture and how people do different things, I'm going to have a lot of team members that are really great at crossing a T, dotting the I. And then anything that's a little bit outside of that is outside of that, and you're going to lose that. Another way to kind of maybe use a different analogy that may help explain it is I talk about this in terms of hospitality versus customer service. Years ago, I liked Levi's jeans. When I grew up, there was only one type of Levi's. Now there's like 52. And I got the wrong pair. And I went to Macy's and to return it, but their point of sale machine was down. And essentially, and the clerk was very friendly. But essentially, it was my point of sale machine is down. You can't return it. That's control.
Right.
A couple months later, similar story, but at Nordstrom's. I needed something I needed to return, and the point of sale machine was down. Who can figure? At Nordstrom's, they said, don't worry about it, exchange it. I got what I need. Whenever this gets fixed, I'll fix it. That's context.
Hmm.
Nordstrom structured it under context of do whatever you need to do to make the customer happy.
Hmm.
Macy's does it from control. We're looking at the bottom line. We're in the cost of goods business. If it doesn't work this way, then there's just nothing you can do. I'm not going to knock either way, But in my experience, context is way more powerful and dynamic than 1+1 = 2 control. So within franchise support, if what I'm trying to do is control everything, I'm going to control nothing. But if we can go to my team with the infrastructure from strategic coaching that you guys created, we're creating context. So there's a framework, but hey, within the framework, how do any of us that interact with our franchisees or even the end customer within that context, what do we do to drive our mission forward and everything forward? I will tell you that context can feel scarier.
Mm-hmm.
It does. I'll be the first one to admit it.
As a leader.
Control, I don't feel that scared. There is control in place. There's a system in place. Everybody's going to do the exact same thing, and we're robots, and here's what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not magical. Context there's a little bit more anxiety, for sure. Our uniform policy is dress Hounds Town casual. Because I'm like, if I got to tell you how to dress professional, you shouldn't work here. Like, context. We don't have expense things when you travel. We just tell people treat the company money like it's your own. That's it. I've worked for companies where I had a stipend for every day. Didn't matter if I was in New York City or Des Moines, Iowa, I had the same stipend. And then if I went over my stipend, I had to use my own money. And then I had to turn in a thing and get reimbursed 4 weeks later. And that's control. Context. And I find that within franchising, a contextual approach is way more powerful. I know I just went off on a huge tangent there. I apologize. I get passionate about
Yeah, that's why we love you. It's awesome. But yeah, so what you're saying is having the framework in place. When you have a framework, what that means is you're teaching people how to deal with different situations and saying, I empower you to deal with it this way. But at the end of the day, what we're really trying to do is, and you already were doing this and you're doing it more now, even you're able to do it more, I think, because of the framework, is really just help that people understand that back to what we talked about at the beginning, the franchisee franchisor relationship and the human element of, like you said, we use that term all the time. And if we can, it's more like we're teaching a mindset, right? Like when you have that framework, it's like there's a mindset of, okay, this franchisee's acting this way, that franchisee's acting that way. I know how to handle those different situations because of that foundational mindset of how we treat franchisees. Would you agree?
absolutely. So
I'm just making this up
no,
as
no,
like,
no. But to give like real life examples,
yeah,
and
I like
anybody
that.
listening to this deals with this example for sure.
Yeah.
Two franchisees, say same trade areas, everything's the same. One is hyper analytical, so really in the numbers.
Franchisee, that's really,
Yeah,
yeah, that's
really in
kind
the
of,
numbers. And the other one is heavy into I have to make everybody happy.
yeah.
Both are struggling with driving profitability, but for very different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
One is because they're hyper focusing on some things that make them feel safe,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not prioritizing the things they need to
And
prioritize.
they're not growing because of
And
it.
they're not growing because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Context. Other one is giving away too many discounts.
Mm-hmm.
Customers, whatever the customer says, the loud minority, I got to go switch everything.
Mm-hmm.
They're not holding their team accountable. They have a hard time saying no. Profitability is not growing. So, in both situations, profitability is not growing. But in both situations, yes, it's about prioritization. But the reasons behind each of those situations are very, very different.
Mm-hmm.
If I just apply a control approach, same tactic to each one may improve, the other one may not, both may not, who knows? But if I lean into the context, I'm going to have a very different data driven conversation with the analytical one.
Hmm.
I'm going to have a more emotional kind of conversation with the individual that's having a hard time saying no.
Hmm.
That's the context. And so my field reps need to be able to see that context, lean on outsiders to see the context, then layer in all the other framework that you guys have done a great job on. So now we can now help that individual drive that profitability.
Yeah. You probably heard me say, and I didn't make it up, I just stole it, but if you can name it, you can tame it, right? Like
R&D, rip off and duplicate.
I ripped off and duplicated.
Yeah,
If
I
you can
ripped
name it,
off and duplicated that. So,
yeah, yeah, exactly. But yeah, if you can name it, you can tame it. And that's
yeah.
again what having a framework and context and all that puts in place. Okay, we need to get towards the Go Be Awesome challenge, but I'm going to ask you one last thing. I just wanted to touch on is the shift. Your main FBC, took our field coach certification. So there's different ways people are tapping into what we do at AC Inc. And it might be that they're getting someone certified, or they're hiring us to come in and put the framework in and customize it for them. Your main FBC was able to take it and start to infuse it with probably your support and the team. When you started weaving that in, and I know I've heard how he felt more empowered and more confident, and that's what we need, and more credibility, right? That's franchise field teams struggle with credibility with franchisees. But what were some of the shifts that you saw? How did that impact culture and franchisee performance? Him having more confidence, having this toolkit, having this framework.
From a culture perspective, what I think it communicated, and him and I have connected on all these, was a big part of culture can be are you just saying it, or do you really mean it? Right? Because we've all been part of different companies, say some great things, but in reality, it doesn't work. Enron had their values chiseled in granite in their lobby. Enron, we all know. And so I had always kind of talked about coming up as a field rep, how hard it could be. You're on the road, not feeling supported. But by us actually kind of investing in this program, culturally, what we're saying is, hey, we've said this, but we mean it. So this field support reps are really important to us. Hey, we do want to kind of make this kind of investment so that you have the infrastructure support, not just from a skills perspective, but an emotional perspective. Because part of this also opened up his network to other field reps. Just like we all feel helpful when we go to an IFA, it's like, I'm dealing with this. And you hear 40 other people say, I'm dealing with the same thing. You're like, oh, I feel better. He has that.
Yeah.
And to me, the most important thing, and I gotta be honest, yes, sales, profit, all that, very important to me. But what I kind of preach to my team a lot is there's a day, I don't mean it morbidly, but there is a day we take our last breath. And what are we thinking of in those last moments? I'm not thinking about the profitability I grew in 2025. What I hope I will remember is when this rep said to me, I'm not taking home the stress and anxiety into my personal life as much. My marriage is better. I'm with my family more. I'm more present.
Wow.
You can't put a number on that. What is that worth? That's invaluable. So that ties in to culture. And I'll be honest, and again, I was completely enamored with the program, the skills, the KPIs, the spreadsheets. Oh, yeah, I love this stuff. But when I was hearing the emotion, he's a better human because of the program. He's a better human.
Yeah.
He's not that he was a bad human before. That came out the wrong way. Anybody heard that? If you heard that, he was an awesome individual. He grew as a human.
Yeah.
He grew as a man. He grew as a father. He grew as a business person.
Yeah.
Well, why else am I here? Hey, that's awesome. And it ties to our culture. Because
Yeah.
our culture, what we say is at your retirement ceremony, and you look back at your career, you look at your time at Hounds Town, and you say, that was the best place I worked. That was the one place that grew me professionally and personally.
Yeah.
This program did both for him.
Wow, that's so cool to hear it put that way. We've heard this from people in different ways, but to hear that you saw it that way is awesome. Okay, we're gonna wrap up here. This is gonna be like I'm gonna challenge you to give me like a 30-second answer on this one. What's the so we have the Go Be Awesome challenge. What's the one thing? This is the Go Be Awesome challenge for the listeners. What's one thing that you encourage them to go do this week to whether it's, improve their culture or improve their franchisee support, just something they can go do.
My challenge to anybody to go out there and have just a more awesome day
There you go.
is do this. Do this one thing.
Oh, I thought that was it. You're just
No,
telling me
no,
to
no, no, no. This is
I'm
my
like,
one
let's go do
thing.
that.
Look at the gains as much as whatever your gaps are. We live in an apathetic world. It's easy to just look at what's not right. Force yourself every day to look at the gains. So for every gain, it's worth two, and every gap is worth one. So you get something from a customer, you get something from a franchisee, it's not going well. Go find and live in the game. You will be more awesome and have a more awesome day by just doing that.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I find myself, I have to catch myself a lot. I like when I'm in like scarcity mode versus abundance mode. That's how I'm
Yeah,
taking that. So,
totally. Me too. Every day.
yeah. And it's funny when you realize, oh, I can flip that switch. And yeah, so okay, that's
And
great.
my
Yeah.
next thing, and I know this is cheesy, listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Right there.
Thank you. Yeah, we've got so many great guests on. I believe we've interviewed Nick on your team.
I
So
heard that. Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
so if you want to hear from Nick himself, when he
Yes.
went,
Well,
find that episode. Okay, well,
Nick gets on there. He's like, "Oh no, no, no." It says
yeah,
he's
I
opposite.
don't know about my boss and the CEO. No, we know what he would say. He's going to say good things. So Rob, I can't thank you enough for all you do to help people really wrap their head around the value of shifting to this modern, scalable, proactive coaching approach, the way that you inspire people to think about their culture. I know you're out there, saying great things about us. We appreciate that because you're helping us on our mission so that we can really help franchisors unlock, that hidden profitability in their franchise system, but also just like you just said, like the human element. So thank you, Rob. So get ready for your line. It's coming. So for everybody listening, if you're ready to join the modern high performing brands that are out there building scalable systems and a culture of performance through coaching frameworks, not just consulting, coaching, and not just depending on skills of their coaches, but actually leveling them up, reach out to us at fieldcoachexperts.com or solutions if you're emailing solutions at fieldcoachexperts.com. And until then, go be
Awesome.